Egypt, Jordan and Syria. Israel's overwhelming air power destroyed the Egyptian Air Force in a matter of hours. In Israel, it was regarded as a victory in a fight for survival they had to win.
We use the spirit, and we use another thing which maybe doesn't exist in any other air forces in the world, and we call it the no alternative. And when you don't have alternatives, you can achieve such achievements as we did in this war.
But even then, Israel was developing an alternative which could make it invulnerable in the Middle East. For the last 40 years, the state has been protected by its own nuclear arsenal, as many as 200 warheads according to the Carnegie Institute. Yet Israel has never resorted to using them.
In 58 years, we were attacked 5 times by armies, 3 times by Intifada. We were outgunned, outnumbered. There was a danger to our existence. Yet, when we started our nuclear option, I told to the then President of the United States who asked me about it, President Kennedy, I told him Israel does not intend to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East, and that remains our policy to this very day.
Shimon Peres began Israel's nuclear research center at Dimona nearly 50 years ago. Yet it officially remains a state secret. Israel calls its policy nuclear ambiguity.
Ambiguity is not a bomb. Ambiguity is an attitude. And if the ones who want to destroy Israel have an ambiguous fear, it's okay. Then you don't need bombs.
But with the perceived threat from Iran, cracks are starting to appear in Israel's commitment to its policy.
Let's say the Iranian will explode an experimental device. It's very dangerous for Israel to know that Iran has this capability and to let the Iranian think that maybe we don't have it.
If an Arab or Muslim country acquires and wields nuclear weapons, this will force a realignment in the entire Middle East, in the world, in fact. And certainly Israel will have to consider its long-held policies as well.
If it is threatened, Israel's first line of defense would be here. The Army's huge array of conventional weapons are developed by a highly sophisticated defense industry, boosted by over $2 billion a year in US subsidy to buy American arms. At the Rafael missile factory in northern Israel, a site rarely filmed, state-of-the-art weapons are being put together.
Papa is a very accurate missile. The pilot sees on the small screen, sees the target, and can direct the missile in a very accurate way. And even he can choose a window, bunker door, whatever. Very, very precise.
The man who designed Israel's defense systems for many years believes this precision technology is crucial to his country's survival.
We are outnumbered by our neighbors, and the only way to survive in this hostile Middle East is to develop those technologies that will give us some qualitative edge upon the numbers.
Despite this technological advantage, the alleged nuclear weapons project in Iran presents Israel's leaders with a new order of threat.
For the first time since the establishment of Israel 58 years ago, we are viewing in front of us an existential threat against Israel.
The big problem is the conjunction between extremist ideology and military capabilities. It's like your neighbor, he has a gun, and he declares every day that he's going to kill you. That's the big problem.
Israel's fears are distilled in this man, Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. 2 months into his presidency, he issues a death sentence against Israel.
There's been strong condemnation of the Iranian president's demand for the destruction of Israel, coming after the country launched its first satellite into space today. It has prompted calls for Iran to be removed from the UN.
In Farsi, Ahmadinejad's words are, the regime occupying Jerusalem, that's Israel, should be eliminated from the pages of history. On this issue, Israel's most senior politicians speak with one voice. The Prime Minister even creates an advisory group made up of his predecessors to discuss the Iranian threat.
I think when you face a threat unlike anything we've seen, a threat to the very existence of a country that Iran says it could wipe out with one bomb, then it's something that is beyond politics.
On the streets of Israel, President Ahmadinejad's statement is regarded as bordering on a declaration of war. The defense minister's most senior intelligence advisor believes Israel should be on its guard.
Iran is not suggesting to exterminate the United States or Europe or Saudi Arabia. They declare very clearly that their goal is to destroy Israel. And based on the historic lessons, and based on the understanding of the nature of this leadership, it's recommended to listen to them seriously and to react accordingly.
Nobody would like to see another genocide. A nuclear bomb can become like a concentration camp, a flying bomb, a flying camp. Nobody would like to see a comeback to the times of the Nazis.
Israeli soldiers are conducting a regular emergency rescue exercise based on the premise of a large rocket hitting a primary school. The exercise assumes the rocket is fired from outside Israel with a conventional warhead. But Israel's leaders are deeply conscious that the same type of missile fired from Iran could carry a nuclear payload. And for those Israelis who have fought in previous conflicts, the possibility of an atomic strike is a reminder of how fragile Israel is.
I carry with me an old experience from the time as a young colonel in the Yom Kippur War. I remember calling my wife at the end of the fighting. I remember her crying over the phone when she heard the list of all our friends who were killed through this. And then I came back to California. When I went to the first football game afterward, I realized that if we did not manage to win this war, Israel would become a part of history and not a single football game would have been cancelled. And I carried this memory with me to the chair of the Prime Minister. Ultimately, we are standing alone.
In the past, this feeling of isolation has led Israel to go it alone. In 1981, Iraq was on the point of acquiring nuclear power. The Osirak reactor was an experimental plutonium plant. The fear was it could ultimately be made to produce weapons-grade fuel. With America then supporting Saddam Hussein, Israel decided to step in and destroy the reactor by itself. General Eitan Ben-Eliyahu was one of the pilots involved in the raid. He later served as the commander of the Israeli Air Force.
You wake up in the morning, you know that there's going to be a very important flight today. You try to balance between your mission, your ideology, to your fear.
The Israeli Air Force used its brand new F-16 fighters to spearhead the mission, flying low along the Saudi border and taking the Iraqi defenses by surprise.
Everything was done under full secrecy. Saddam Hussein was busy in a war against Iran. So the best idea was to sneak in silence, and then the day after, everybody understood it. You did feel in every single minute that you're gonna step into something that it is going to be historic.
At that time, we could, by a single strike, eliminate the Iraqi capacity for, we believed at the time, 5 to 8 years. Eventually, it ended up that it was forever.
Everything went smooth, not even one single mistake.